Allow me to thank you for attending this impromptu press briefing. I guess that by now, every member of the media here would have either read or heard the decision from the CCJ this morning. And if you have not done so, I urge you to address your attention to the media releases that were issued from the CCJ, which is a summary of their decision today. And that the media releases are two, one dealing with the GCOM chairman and the other issue with the no confidence ruling. So before I go into the ruling itself, I think it behooves me to thank all of the people involved in this matter. First of all, those who brought cases to address this issue. And I'm not thanking them because they're members of the People's Progressive Party, or they even coordinated their positions with us. I'm thanking them because they were willing to step forward and address a serious issue for all Guyanese. And that is the issue of the constitutionality of our government, the behavior of government in office, and the primary issue of rule of law and respect for rule of law. So the names that I mentioned here are not necessarily people who support the PPP or coordinated their positions with us. But I wish on behalf of all Guyana, not supporters of the People's Progressive Party, but all Guyana, to thank them for the work they did. First of all, Zulfikar Mustafa from the People's Progressive Party. One of the cases was in his name. And Christopher Ram, an attorney at law in Guyana that is well known to everyone, who was prepared to step forward and challenge the unconstitutional behavior of this government. And representing those individuals were lawyers Devendra Kissoon, Sanjeev Dattadin, and Kamal Ramkuran. I wish to thank them for their participation in this case. On our side, on the primary matter of the no confidence motion, we had several lawyers who participated in representing us, and I wish today to publicly thank them for the work they did. First of all, Senior Counsel Douglas Mendez, who led our case at the CCJ, former Attorney General Anil Nandalal, Devesh Maharaj from Trinidad, Manoj Narayan from the Chamber of Anil Nandalal, Marcia Nadir, who is here with us today, Pratesh Satram, Rajai Gobin, and Candice Bharrat. These were all individuals. There may have been others who helped, and I wish to thank them too, but these were individuals who played an important role in the cases in adjudicating, not adjudicating, but representing us on these cases. So as I said before, today there is no room for gloating. There is no room for triumphalist behavior on behalf of the People's Progressive Party. We said that on the night of the passage of the no confidence motion, that there is no room for despair in our country because at that time the no confidence motion was passed. And we say that here again today. What we are very, very happy about is that the final court, this Caribbean Court of Justice, has just declared a victory for constitutional rule in Guyana. And throughout this all, I want to recall the behavior of the People's Progressive Party and contrast that with how others have behaved when serious matters of this nature have been adjudicated. When the Speaker upheld the ruling, we urged the government to follow the Speaker's ruling. They did not. They went to the court. The Chief Justice upheld the validity of the no confidence vote, and the government was not satisfied. And at the Court of Appeal, when the decision was overruled, we could have done what the government did and say that we did not accept the decision of the Court of Appeal, but we did not. We respectfully said we disagreed with the decision. We will challenge the matter at the CCJ, but we allowed the government to function as though it was legal. However, I warned that a lot that was being done was done prematurely. The reconvening of the National Assembly, because if we were to get a decision like the one we got today here, it meant that the government has been illegal since March 21st, 2019. That is the key point today, because the CCJ upheld the ruling. And I just want, I'm not going to, I said to you before, please read the decisions. But there are two parts of the media release from the CCJ that I would like to read verbatim. In the first paragraph, it says, in the judgment delivered today, the CCJ declared that the motion of no confidence in the government is valid. Guyana's constitution states that the cabinet, including the president, is required to resign if the government is defeated by the majority vote of all the elected members of the National Assembly on a vote of confidence. So, and in the second paragraph, it says, despite the Speaker of the Assembly declaring that the motion had been validly passed, the government neither resigned nor announced impending elections. So, this is important. The Constitution, I want to go back to what the Constitution says, because sometimes we have a short memory, and I've seen already the apologists for the government shifting the focus. But the Constitution of Guyana says, Article 106.6 says, the cabinet, including the president, shall resign if the government is defeated by a vote of a majority of all the elected members of the National Assembly on a vote of confidence. And two, notwithstanding its defeat, the government shall remain in office and shall hold an election within 3 months or such long a period as the National Assembly shall by resolution supported by not less than 2/3 of the votes of all elected members of the National Assembly determined. So there are clear provisions. Now that they no confidence, there is no other recourse to the government to challenge this. The final court has spoken. These two provisions have kicked in. And they should have been relevant since last year. So the count can't start from today. The count should start from when the no confidence motion was validly passed, which was the 21st of December, the 3 months from that period. And that ended in March of this year. So what we have had is an illegal government since March of this year. And all of the spending, etc., and the period that they remain in office to, I need to speak about this, that the period between the no confidence motion and when the elections are held 3 months, within 3 months, that period is also defined in the memorandum to the bill amending these articles of the Constitution. And it says, shall stay in office only for the purpose of holding elections in a caretaker capacity. In a caretaker capacity. This government has not acted since December of last year in a caretaker capacity. What it has done, it's business as usual. The Sovereign Wealth Fund was passed in the period when they were illegal. They have gone to the parliament and gotten $8 billion in supplementary in the period when they were illegal. They have awarded billions of dollars of contracts in the period when they were illegal. They have given out thousands of acres of land to cronies in the government in the period when they're illegal. They're privatizing our assets in the period when they're illegal. They're spending $1.5 billion on outreaches, just for the conduct of the outreaches, in the period when they're illegal, and they should not have been spending this. This is what this decision actually says. So, I am not going to speak much more about this matter, excepting once again to say to our supporters and to all Guyana, we will continue to act responsibly. We will continue to uphold the Constitution of Guyana. We'll continue to abide by the rule of law, even if our government doesn't. And today, faith has been restored in our judicial system. And I recall when we decided, I was president, to join the Caribbean Court of Justice, there were lots of naysayers. And they felt that Guyana will never get a fair hearing from the CCJ. And we argued that our country needed an external review to insulate our judicial system from any sort of influence. In the 70s, President Burnham removed us from that external review because we had the Privy Council. And I suspect that if we had that external review, continue to have it in the period of undemocratic rule, that we would have never had that period, because the external courts would have upheld the illegality of the government in that period. And so it is critical that because had we not had this external review, then the no confidence motion would have failed based on the decision of our Court of Appeal. it would have been deemed not valid. And so I'm sure that all Guyanese must be happy that we have a final court that will adjudicate impartially on these matters. And therefore, many people heard me. Just recently, I said, should we win today, it will be a sprint to elections, and if we did not prevail today, then it would be a medium distance, a 400 meters run. And I said also that whatever the outcome, we have to work to rescue Guyana from this corrupt, incompetent cabal that manages only for itself. And so the opportunity has presented itself to all Guyana to free ourselves from this cabal in a shorter period. But not all is defined as yet. And you heard me say also and more recently that we will hit the roads if a decision of this nature were to come in favor of the PPP to force the government to hold early elections. Well, you're gonna see us speak very little on this matter, and you're not going to see any major form of protest until the consequential orders are given. Because we want to respect the decision of the court. The court has asked that the two sides get together and try to come up to a consensus position. I'll come to that in a moment, because that is on the GCOM matter. So this is our posture. In the meantime today, we have dusted off all of our plans, and the party will go into full election mode beginning tomorrow. And therefore, and I want to thank all of those activists of the PPP who, though demoralized by the adverse decision at the Court of Appeal, continue to work across Guyana in the house-to-house campaign. Many of them visited communities. They were in South Georgetown and in Buxton and in Enmore and Enterprise in the last 2 months. They were there every single day, going out, some of them leaving Georgetown to go across the country. And therefore, they kept the faith. And I want to thank them for this, because they had faith in our Constitution and constitutional order. So we're going to only intensify the work. And this work is, as I said before, this is not just for PPP supporters. I don't believe that this is a victory for PPP supporters as such. This is a victory for Guyana. And so we will accelerate our work at the party level on this matter. The second issue, the GCOM's, the chairman's appointment, I want to quote again from their press release, the first paragraph of the press release from the CCJ. And it says, the Caribbean Court of Justice today ruled that the process through which Justice James Patterson was appointed chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission by His Excellency Brigadier David Granger, President of Guyana, was flawed and in breach of Guyana's constitution. Now, we have always argued that the president breached the constitution in making this appointment. This is a year and a half now. We have had to live with his unconstitutional appointment. Two courts in Guyana held up the unconstitutional appointment. And today, the CCJ has declared it unconstitutional and invalid, that appointment of Justice Patterson. It was illegal. The president breached the Constitution, and we lived with it for a year and a half. And with all of the problems that have come about because of the partisan acts of this gentleman. So this is critical for me. It means that the president can't act with impunity over our Constitution. He's not above the Constitution. It is not his interpretation, as he often thinks, that matters as to how he proceeds on these issues. There is a Constitution of Guyana, and he has to respect the Constitution. He derives his power from the Constitution. Yet, when it comes to these matters, he places himself above the Constitution. And they act as though it's normal. Look at the air of normalcy that they had presented over this appointment over the years, over the past 18 months or so. And so today, that's an important ruling for us. Very, very important ruling, apart from the no confidence motion, that it is how presidents act in Guyana. And on this matter, as I was saying earlier, we have to go back to the court soon. And the court has asked that the two sides try to come up with a consensus on the way forward. And so I spoke with Senior Counsel Mendez this morning. We shared some ideas, and we will continue to do that and engage the other side at the legal level, at that level, between the lawyers, to see if we can reach a consensus on the way forward. I want to assure our supporters, as well as Guyana, that we are being reasonable, but we're not giving in to anything that will run counter to the full respect of the Constitution and the rule of law. And therefore, at this time, I will not speak about what our positions are, because that will be in engagements between the lawyers that will be shared until we can report back to the court on Monday. These are some of the issues I wanted to talk about today. I want to reiterate that there is no room for triumphalist behavior today. We just have to do what we've always called for. Respect the Constitution and hold the elections as early as possible. And now that the government has been illegal throughout this entire period, we will have to decide what will happen to much of their illegal acts in this period. And so I'm still looking at this issue, and I'll speak about it in greater detail maybe later in the week. But definitely from today onwards, that any contract, anything outside of what the explanatory memorandum to the bill amending these articles of the Constitution outlined, anything outside of that sense, that where they have a caretaker capacity, those issues that they deal with would be declared illegal by the PPP government. So any contract they sign, any policy they pass, any attempt to reconvene Parliament or do anything of that sort, that connotates the routine functioning of the government. Because this government, says, oh, it's business as usual. Well, it's not business as usual. Every time I met President Granger, he'd say, oh, the matter is still in court. Well, it's no longer in court now. The final decision is made. And your government is illegal as a result of that final decision. So we will be intolerant. The activity that they have today and the funding for that activity in Bartica is illegal. Is illegal. He's going to be there as an illegal president too. Or a president that runs an illegal government. That's the implication of this ruling. And so we hope the international community now will take a strong position on this matter. Many of them were told by the diplomats from the government side that you cannot take a strong view on this matter, even calling for respect of constitutionality, because the matter is still in court. Well, for the diplomatic community, the matter is now resolved definitively, and so the government can claim that the no confidence motion is invalid or still being challenged. The CCJ has ruled that it is valid and that it has triggered Article 106.6 and 106.7 of our Constitution. So it's as clear as daylight. So we expect more stronger positions from the international community to push for elections to be held. We hope that the staff of GCOM and also the commissioners take note of this decision. They take note of this decision and they act accordingly. And that they start preparing for early elections, very early elections. If the government is going to come to us and argue that they've been saying in some quarters November or October, well, that's not going to fly with us. That's not going to fly. And, did Granger say that? Granger said November. He is determining now. That's precisely what so I heard Granger just said November the elections will be held. So we have to now live with the government a year, 1 year. 1 year after it was declared illegal to now have to wait on elections. Well, Granger has another thing coming because we are going to urge the international, community. So Granger lives in a bubble. I'm just told that he said after House to House and November that Granger lives in a bubble. He hangs on with his corrupt cabal on the government at all costs. That is it. He is divorced from the reality of constitutional rule. Imagine you have to be severely diminished in capacity to read a ruling of the one that you just had today from the CCJ and then argued as though he has full authority like a normal president would have, or a president that is legal would have, to declare when elections should be held. The elections are now governed by the constitutional provision that has kicked in, 106.7. 3 months, it says, and that was 3 months since December. So this is the typical Granger. Imagine the PPP was doing this. Half of the city would have been on fire already. Half of the city. That is it. So let's hope that Granger will come back to reality, the reality of life. And this is opening up, you're going to have a lot of people who are spending state resources now, who will rue the day that they're spending these resources in the way they're doing it. Thank you.
Mr. Jagdeo,
yes.
From the start, could you say what would be an acceptable date for elections then?
Elections should have been held. We're hoping that the elections will be held within two months. 2 months.
That's what this ruling?
Yes, yeah, 2, maybe 3, maximum 3. And that's being practical. One of the judges said you have to go between principle and practicality, balance the two. So the principle is that elections should be held tomorrow. They're illegal since March 21st. The practicality is 2 to 3 months.
The President has issued a statement saying that he is now waiting on a specific date from JCOM. He has cited the November timeline provided by the JCOM.
Please, you know how,
what
yes.
Just said.
No, but I'm not getting worked up at you. I'm just getting at how divorced this gentleman is from everything else under the sun. Everything else under the sun. We have a president who is, I don't want to be unkind, but who has just lost it.
What are your options if the President goes ahead and declares a date for elections before Monday? Before the lawyers have an opportunity to present consequential...
That doesn't mean that his date would be acceptable, because he would be acting unconstitutionally again. He'd be acting unconstitutionally again.
Also, if he's the one who has the mandate to proclaim elections.
If it's a normal situation, then the president is empowered within the 5 years that he's elected for to call elections at any time and dissolve the parliament by proclamation at any time within the 5 years. It's at his discretion. He has that authority. When you have no confidence motion passed that has been declared validly passed today, the no confidence motion through Article 106, 6 and 7 takes away that discretion from the president. He can then determine when he holds the elections again. He has to follow the rule. The rule now 106.7 says within 3 months of the passage of the no confidence motion, or longer if you have an extension of the life of the government by 2/3 vote of the National Assembly. There has been no vote to extend the life of the government. The no confidence motion has been validly passed. So the powers that the president would have in a normal situation has been amended by this no confidence motion on Article 106.6 and 106.7. And that is, you don't need a law degree to understand that. You don't need a law degree to understand that. All you need is common sense. But it's not that the president doesn't possess common sense. They're just hanging on for dear life, hoping that they can draw down some more perks of the office, just drag it on. This is what they are doing, whilst the country is drifting. He's hanging on for dear life and hoping they can spend taxpayers' money that they're doing now to campaign.
Isn't 2 to 3 months for an election impractical? Given that the Secretariat of the Commission had said 128 days is the most practical that they can go without house-to-house registration.
No, the Secretariat was heavily influenced by the legally appointed chairman. The legally appointed chairman. So I hope that the new chairman will resolve all of this issue.
I mean, sir, in the ruling this morning, the judge suggested that a good way would be for the parties to sit down and discuss possible names for the list before you actually submit the actual list? Is this a road you're willing to go down? Would you be willing to sit with the president and consider names before actually
I don't have a problem because we've been asking, in fact, at one of my meetings with him, I said, would you tell me the reasons why you're rejecting these 18 names? And he said, I have I wouldn't tell you. That is precisely, had he told us, then maybe we would have amended the list.
Okay, and what you said, full elections mode from tomorrow. Tell me what constitutes full election mode as in this context. What to expect?
Full elections mode. You'll hear more about that later in the week.
And okay, another question. One of the persons you had submitted for GCOM chairman would have been Christopher Ram, but he later, as you mentioned earlier, went with the PPP to...
No. He did not go. That's why I started off. Christopher Ram did not go with the PPP. Christopher Ram got 2 lawyers to file a case on a constitutional case. They did not coordinate with us. He didn't ask our permission to file that case, and I'm glad he did. But he was fighting for the rule of law and constitutional order. I think we should respect someone like that.
And you would still submit his name?
I'm not going to do that through a public process.
Mr. Jagdeo, I hate to go back to the president's statement, but he's basically insisted in his address to the nation a few moments ago that elections are only possible with a new list. Just your response to that.
Well, I'm not going to say anything anymore. I've not amended my opinion of the president. I've not changed it. I just believe that in spite of all people say, that he knows what's going on. He can't be oblivious to the daily corruption, the wanton theft of state resources. And he presents himself as aloof from all of this. And he cannot be oblivious to the implications of the ruling. He cannot be oblivious to what Articles 1066 and 1067 of our Constitution say. Cannot be oblivious to all of these things, yet he insists on this. He didn't insist, this list expired in April 30th. He didn't insist that we do this before the local government elections. He didn't insist. This guy is hanging on, he sees the writing on the wall. He's hanging on for his few last days as president, hoping that somehow, through this wanton theft and use of state resources for campaigning, they can change their electoral fortune. And that's what he's doing. Again, this is another Granger dissing the Constitution like he did with the appointment of the chairman of GCOM. This is Granger saying, ignore the Constitution. What I say matters. I'm going to tell you what you need to do. You have to go and do the House to House, and then I'll hold elections. He has no such powers in our Constitution. But this is another issue of Granger acting above the Constitution that he just got struck down by the CCJ for.
So you think that the list can be cleansed, the chairman can be reappointed, everything that needs to happen in 3 months?
I think so. I think so, and that is where you saw what the CCJ is saying. You're living basically on borrowed time. These people have squatted on government illegally for a long while. They've been squatting in government. They go run after the squatters and try to throw them off the streets. And when I said chase them out, they wanted to lock me up. But they've been squatting in government. And today has confirmed that there are a bunch of squatters, corrupt squatters.
Sir, another question. The GCOM chairmanship and the issue of the going to election, they're tied. You can't run away from that. You have to appoint the chairman before you can even consider how soon you are going to...
Why are you dealing with this issue now? I've said already that we will be sharing our positions, and if we don't reach a consensus, on Monday the court would rule. The court would rule on the matter. We'll be sharing, but definitely we're not accepting that this president stands above the ruling of the CCJ, nor the Constitution of Guyana. No matter who he is, we're never going to accept that.
In sharing your positions, you said that it's going to be at the legal of your lawyers. So are you saying that between now and Monday, no meeting with the president, just between the lawyers and the
lawyers? That's all, at this point in time, that's the position.
Okay.
If I understand clearly, Mr. Jagdeo, you said contracts, outreaches, and so on are considered illegal, but how will you treat the amendments passed during this time?
That's what I said. We have to, I was speaking going forward from today.
Yes.
And I said I'll have to take some advice on what happened in the last few months. In my view, everything they've done since that is outside of that provision, which mandates that they act as in a caretaker capacity, that anything that exceeds the caretaker capacity can be deemed illegal. And that means from December 21st of last year, contracts and all of those things. But I want to apprise myself of the legal position on those issues before I take a definitive position. However, I know from now on, from today onwards, everything is illegal because there's a final decision of the court. Thank you. Oh, sure, yes.
So that seeing as today's
Which means the house?
with oil now.
Oh, no, okay.
So seeing as today's decision as the CCJ again triggers an early election, so if the PPP were to win in the next upcoming election, would this change the already established timeline for first oil that the government has with Exxon?
I don't think the government has a timeline with Exxon. I think Exxon should produce its oil whenever it's ready. Why would the government have a timeline with Exxon? I thought that Exxon, once the FPSO comes here and everything is in order, they start producing. What does government have to do with that?
More or less, so what I mean to say is that if the PPP were to win the election before then, that would you call for any sort of change to whatever is the official policy dealing with Exxon prior to the
Well,
election?
frankly speaking, I don't know. We're at a loss about this government's official policies on oil and gas, in the oil and gas sector. And if you listen to me every week at the press conference, that's my lament. That's my lament on everything. But one thing is clear that we want ExxonMobil to do well, to produce. We want them to produce as early as possible, and we want the resources that Guyanese must benefit from larger shares of those resources. But we want the oil to be produced as early as possible.
Okay, so just as a confirmation, so that means that if the PPP were to win and to go into the government, that they would, at least to your knowledge now, not change any arrangement?
No, because that arrangement, it has nothing to do with government. That is the production schedule, which is dependent on them being ready. My concern about the oil and gas sector has to do with the Sovereign Wealth Fund. It has to do with the regulatory environment, which is not clearly defined. It has to do with how Guyanese will fare in the industry, because our people are losing out on, not just in the oil sector, but in the subsidiary industries and the services industry to support oil. We seem to be forced out of all the opportunities by foreign companies. There must be a space for our people in there. And they can't be just, our people can't just be fetching garbage or be gardeners for people who come in from abroad to benefit from the oil. We have to have all of our people across Guyana, regardless of where they live, the kids in South Georgetown or in Port Morant or in Paramacotoy, they must see a future with the oil resources too. Not just everyone walking in all the furnace and hogging all the opportunities. And our government can do that. Every year they're supposed to approve a local content plan. They're not even paying attention to it. That will change. That will change rapidly.
Do you think the current political situation in Invalid affects investor confidence in the oil sector?
I don't think the oil sector, well, you didn't have much investor confidence. In any case, they chased away all the investors except in the oil and gas industry. It dried up because of the corruption, because of the capricious nature of their policy making, because of the changing incentive regimes. That's what changed it all. There's no predictability in government. One day they think one thing and then the next day they do something else. Even in the oil and gas sector, people come here to invest and they say, all right, you're not going to give us the same conditions that ExxonMobil got. But what are we going to get? Where is this model PSA that you've been working on for ages? Nothing. Not even, so how could I come and invest if I'm not even clear about what the benefits would be or what the concessions would be? This is the malaise. So they're busy, very busy, running around Bartica now, and they'll go to Mabruma and around talking nonsense. Oh, good life and green economy and all that nonsense. And where it matters, job, crime, healthcare, education, tackling people, housing, they're not doing anything. Oh, and on the stealing all the time. Look at the newspapers, daily basis. I saw the thing about the sale of the the towers, but it runs deeper. The scrap metal thing. I've seen some people been sending stuff to me. It's unbelievable what they're doing. And even Kaisuko now has concern. And don't tell me the president doesn't know about this. He went to Albion. He said, I'm here to fix your problems. And you can't fix this, the theft. They have dismantled the privatization board. Why doesn't the media ask, where is the privatization board that had a private sector rep, a consumer rep, and a labor rep, where every privatization deal went from the unit to the board? So at least those people could have shared their views. Now the SPU makes all the decision, and some cabinet ministers. Look at the cover-up with Patterson. Total police cover-up, so-called cover-up. And they did it one day before the AFC Congress.
So you have a probe redone for that?
A probe redone?
Yeah.
Nothing was done. You got to restart it. Guilty Sure wrote the thing. A probe, that is a clear-cut case of corruption. Clear-cut case. There's a police matter. That would be a police matter. Patterson should have been charged already. Charged. There's a clear-cut. It's a cover-up. So that is what Granger is busy doing. Bartica, when the country is crying out for leadership and not addressing the fundamental issues. And when I say this, who suffers? Not just PPP supporters, all of Guyana. All of Guyana. So we are on a task to rescue Guyana. Thank you.